Narayanam namaskritam naram chaivatanuttamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayodhirayat. Nasta prayasho bhadreshu nityam bhagata sevya bhagatiyotamashoki bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Nigama kapatura garitam param shukamakaram idavdavi samitam pibata bhagatam rasamariyam mahora harashikabhuvekaham. Krishna swadam bhagate dhammikin karo nasta dvishamasha parana kodunodita. Tomaviyadavashuddha vishuddhameva samapyarena vidam virachanam prakahita hormata sanklesha nirvanamasanti naletaha. Chakvasharanam charanam bhajamahe bhajana pakvatapaja yajogvadaramana kovartatam bhajatam shadamaham. Anartha bhajamam shakshat bhakti yogam lokashajananda chakvasat padasamitam. Abmaromistamuna granti korvanti ahritikam vitum ita buddha ganahari. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopishwa Gopika Kanta Radhakam Chanamostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sute Devi Pranamani Pare Pare. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Surado Pango Mama Mandya Matergati Matsavashaparam Bhaja Radha Ramari Mohanam Sriman Rasarasaram Vamsi Vara Karshan Ganesana Gopinata Sri Sanam Divyad Bindaranya Kapadrimada Srimad Ratnagada Shimasanishto Sri Sirada Shida Govinari Prestadavi Sevamanushmani Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmani Jagati Taya Krishna Govinaya Namo Om Ganati Manandasya Ganagana Sadaka Jaksurun Minitam Tashmai Shri Gadvedamam Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Swayamrupa Karamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Siguru Siyata Parakamanam Shikarun Vaishnavam Sirupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Sarita Shibhishakan Vitam Stam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Shimari Bhakti Vedanta Shamitana Manistaya Sarasati Deva Guruvani Pachani Nirvisheshan Yuvari Bhaskadani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm good, Prabhuji. Just getting ready to head out to this court stuff. But I'm in a good place, and I'm got my faith in Krishna, so I'm optimistic.
I think Krishna's using it as a platform to get you some extra leverage in the connection with your son. I think it's going to turn out really well. I think it's going to boomerang on your antagonist.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyway, I just want the best for my son, whatever that may be.
Well, I'm sure Krishna will give it, because your son is a devotee in progress. Everybody who's met him has the same conclusion. Sweet guy.
Thank you for saying that, Prabhuji. Krishna has blessed me and him.
There you go. Sometimes his blessing comes through challenges as well as open doors. So, Malini Preeti, thanks for joining us. It's been a long time. She says she hasn't heard her classes, and that's understandable because she's halfway around the world in Malaysia, and the time difference is great. Snowy Salt Lake. I don't see snow coming down outside here, but I guess it's coming down in Salt Lake according to Govinda Dev Ji Prabhu. Bye, Bobby. Good morning. Sundari Priya. Hari Hari Bo. Glories to Prabhupada. Brent and Joshua came over last night and helped us read 108 verses, principal verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and then we had some prasadam afterwards, a nice conversation as well. Rakesh, Hari Hari Bo. Glories to Prabhupada. Happy day after Gita Jayanti to everyone. Mahatma, Hari Bo. Good morning. We're going to have to send you some pictures of our buffet to be included in your gallery along with all the other wonderful restaurants. I think there was a whole spread on Prasadarians the other day about the Las Vegas restaurant. We've gone down to Las Vegas. We do the Festival of Colors in Vegas, and they let us park our RV and truck in their parking lot. We eat at the buffet. But it seems like since we were there 2 years ago before COVID, some other people have taken over the buffet, and it looks really, really, really good. My gosh, the buffet in the Las Vegas temple, it appears to me, has gone to the next level. And we're scheduled to be down there April 16th to do a Festival of Colors. So I'm excited about everything to do with that festival. The parks people are wonderful, congenial people to work with. They love us. The park is beautiful. The place where we do the festival is a big green field in the southwest corner of the park, right by the lake. And of course, we get to enjoy the association of devotees and the prasadam there as well. We used to park, before they opened the temple in Las Vegas, we used to park at the Circus with our RV. It was only $35 a night. And we were able to park our truck, our big 24-foot box truck in there also at no extra charge. But I'll tell you, parking at the transcendental purified Krishna temple is much better for us. We look forward to going to Vegas much more than we had even before. We're revisiting the 32nd verse of the 5th chapter, the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Etad samsuchitam brahmansh tapatraya chikitsatam yarishvaraya bhagavati karma brahmani papitam. Narada says to the compiler of the Vedas, the literary incarnation of God, his disciple Vyasadeva, O Brahmana Vyas, it is decided by the learned. And this is a 5-year-old boy that you can't go wrong when you quote the higher authorities. I may not know what a microphone is for. I may not know how a microphone works. But if I hear from the people who know, people who are further along, more advanced, more mature than me, this is a microphone, and I just repeat what I've heard, I may be a 5-year-old child, but I'm repeating timeless, infallible, authentic knowledge. This is a microphone. Prabhupada once said of Saraswati, she was a 5-year-old daughter, Malati, Sarmasundar. So Prabhupada said, everybody's a preacher. Everybody can convey the absolute truth. So the question is, well, everybody? I mean, even a 5-year-old girl? Prabhupada said, yes, because all this little 5-year-old girl has to do is go up to someone and say, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Ahushtam Risha Sarve, Deva Sharasito Nirashayo Sarve. That same conclusion was reached by Asita, Deva, Narada, Vyasadeva. So if that 5-year-old girl repeats the same conclusive truth that is arrived at, that has already been arrived at by all the great saints and sages throughout history, then it's not the babbling, it's not the nonsensical babbling of a 5-year-old, but it's actually the absolute truth from the mouths of children. And how charming that is. Who can resist that? Yesterday we talked about devotional service, bhakti, to the Supreme Personality of God being the only remedial measure for removing all the troubles and miseries of conditional life. And without that, it doesn't matter how much power, how much might, how much governmental authority, how many champions, how many tough guys, how many bodyguards, how much power surrounds you. Krishna will find a way. He will get in there. He will find his loophole. Hiranya Kashipu couldn't be killed by land or sea, by day or night, inside the house or outside of the house, by any weapon, by any man or beast. And yet the Lord found the loophole. He managed to respect all of those conditions at the same time, do away with Hiranyakashipu. Although Hiranyakashipu was protected by the benediction of Lord Brahma, Krishna is the creator of millions of Brahmas. So when Krishna wants to kill you, that will trump Brahma's protection. That will trump Shiva's protection. That will trump Durga's protection. That will trump protection of any great sage or any great demigod, what to speak of a puny political leader, king, president, prime minister, head of state in this material world. It trumped Hiranyakashipu, and he controlled the whole universe. So why would it not trump any other lesser personalities as well? And we're going to talk about someone else who got trumped and thumped by the Lord. And that was Jayadratha. And if you read about Jayadratha in the Mahabharata, he was the king of Sindhu. He had a beautiful wife. He had beautiful children. He was the son of Vridakshetra. And Vridakshetra is feeling paternal affection, think just let me list all the protections that were in place for Jayadratha, and then in the end, Krishna managed to kill him anyway. So Vritakshara, wanting to protect his son, as any father does, was able to get the boon, I believe it was from Lord Shiva, that anybody who would cause Jayadratha's head to hit the ground, his own head would split into 1,000 pieces. So this became publicized. Everybody knew this about Jayadratha. So nobody wanted to fight him. They were afraid that if they fought him and his head hit the ground, then their own head would split into thousands of pieces. So whenever Jayadratha went to fight, people would run away. He considered himself, just like Hiranya Kashipu, he considered himself invulnerable, impervious to the arrows and javelins and spears of others. So he was married to Dishala, which is an interesting fact. She was the only daughter of Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. They had 100 sons, headed up by Duryodhana, but she was the only daughter that they had. So, one time, Jayadratha, happily married, feeling himself well protected by the boons which his father received and passed on to him, was just traveling to Shalva. He passed by the Kamyak forest where the Pandavas were sojourning during their 13 years of exile from the forest after the dice game. And he caught sight of Draupadi while her husbands were out practicing their martial arts. Draupadi was managing, holding down the fort there in the forest hermitage. And he Krota Bhavati Samaha Samaha Shmiti Bamsha Buddhi Buddhi Shamparam. Those who are not engaged, whose senses are not busily engaged, who are not connected, plugged into devotional service, they cannot control their senses. Ayarati Vaipamsha Udyamas, any one of the senses which becomes attached to any object of that sense can drag away the whole body, just like a wind in any direction can pull a boat off course which has no anchor. Jayadratha caught sight of Draupadi, her beautiful form, the beautiful form of the ultimate female. And then, before he knew it, he developed lust, he developed attachment. He had to have her. Never mind, he was happily married to Dhritarashtra and Gandhari's only daughter. Never mind that she had 5 husbands herself. Never mind all social conventions. Never mind breaking karmic rules. He whisked her up against her will onto his chariot. Pandavas returned to the hermitage. They discerned what had happened to her. They chased Jayadratha down, and they took all of his hair off, insulted him. He went off in a big huff, and he did penances and austerities, the result of which was that Shiva appeared before him, and he asked that he be able to defeat all the Pandavas in battle. And Shiva said, that's not possible. Nobody can do that. Even I can't give you that boon because they're protected by Lord Krishna. So then he moderated, he reduced, and finally came, well, let me hold off for an hour for the Pandavas except for Arjuna. Shiva would not allow Jayadratha the boon of even stalemating Arjuna, because Arjuna is the friend of Krishna. Nobody messes. Shiva knows better than anybody else. You don't mess with the personal friends of Krishna. But he did grant him a boon that for 1 hour he would be able to hold off Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakula, and Sahadeva for 1 hour only. Fast forward, Battle of Kurukshetra is in progress. Each side is trying to figure out how to get the advantage over the other side. On the next day, it was learned that Duryodhana is going to form his army in the shape of a wheel formation. The wheel like churns up, a wheel like rolls over, it turns up, it chews up the opposition. But if anyone can penetrate into the inside of the wheel, it destroys the whole mechanism. It throws it off, and it's no longer lethally effective. And so Abhimanyu had heard during the pregnancy, while he was in the womb of his mother, he'd heard the method. He'd heard Arjuna describing how to get into the wheel. But Arjuna walked out of the room and he didn't hear how to get out. Well, anyway, the Pandavas looked at the formation of the Kauravas. Arjuna and Krishna were already off ready to engage in a fight in a different part of the battlefield. So Abhimanyu and his four uncles are looking at the wheel formation. The wheel formation is chewing up their forces. They're in danger of losing the whole war right there. So Abhimanyu says, I can get in, but I can't get out. So if I get in, then I won't be able to get out. So I need your protection. You need to be my wheel guards. And Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakul, and Sahadev readily agreed. You go in, we'll guard your wheel. We'll be your wingman, and we'll protect you. So sure enough, Abhimanyu, he worked his way inside of the wheel, and he was throwing off the rhythm and the timing of the whole Kaurava army, giving the Pandavas a break, a respite. But the problem was, this, this was the moment when Jayadratha decided to invoke the benediction of Shiva. Normally, he couldn't last even 5 minutes with any one of those four Pandavas, but due to the boon of Lord Shiva, as soon as Abhimanyu punched in and got inside the forces of the Kauravas, and there was a big hole there, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakul, and Sahadev were rushing to enter the hole after Abhimanyu to protect him, and Jayadratha stood. He came and he stood in the hole, and he fought so expertly, so powerfully, and so valiantly due to the boon of Lord Shiva. He held him off for an hour. That was all it took for 7 big Maharajas, Karna, Ashwatthama, Duryodhana, Dronacharya, and Bhishma, to gang up on the 16-year-old boy Abhimanyu and kill him. So Arjuna got back to the campfire that night after having fought in a different part of the battlefield. He noticed nobody would look him in the eye. Everybody was downcast. There was a pall over the whole campfire. He knew something catastrophic had happened. And he didn't see his son. Usually his son would come to him first thing, his 16-year-old son, the apple of his eye. And he said, why is everybody downcast, and where is Abhimanyu? When he learned that Abhimanyu had been slaughtered, unfairly ganged up upon by 7 Maharajas, and it was Jayadratha who had enabled that to happen by stopping Arjuna's 4 brothers, he made a vow. He didn't consult with Krishna. He just blurted out, if I don't kill Jayadratha by the end of the day's hostilities tomorrow, I will enter into fire. Krishna found out about it. He said, Arjuna, you shouldn't go out making these kinds of vows unless you talk to me. He said, probably Duryodhana's spies have already told him that, and now Jayadratha will be especially protected. He's already protected by the boon of his father than anyone who makes his head fall on the ground. His own head will split into 1,000 pieces. So you've promised to kill Jayadratha, but now what if you do kill him, and then his head hits the ground because of your killing him, and then your head's going to split? So what are we going to do about that? And what are we going to do about the fact that, of course, Krishna's just playing here. He knows that there's no limits on what God can do. There's no armor, shield, or tower protection that you could throw up that Krishna can't find a way to penetrate. So Krishna is just playing with Arjuna here. He said, okay, what are we going to do about this head-breaking boon? And what are we going to do? Because now, probably right now, Duryodhana is figuring out a way to protect Jayadratha with his entire force of 4 million people. Sure enough, on the other side of the battlefield, there's a big conference taking place. Duryodhana has received news from his spies that if Arjuna doesn't kill Jayadratha by the end of the day's hostilities, and hostilities always ended at sunset, Arjuna will enter into fire and commit suicide. Jayadratha, when he heard that, he said, I'm leaving, man, I'm out of here. I'm splitting, I'm going home. Duryodhana said, don't worry, we'll protect you. There's no way they can get to you. And this is typical of the materialistic person. They're very proud of their technology. They're very proud of their strength. They think that whatever problems or reactions come to them, they will counteract that with their intelligence, with their prowess, with their technology, and their ability. They're eternally hopeful about remedial measures. Unfortunately, they don't know that the only remedial measure is to get the sanction of the Lord. Before you embark or endeavor on any project, before you step out to fulfill any dream, you should first and foremost make sure that it's within the plan of the Lord. If it's within the plan of the Lord, then you've got all of heaven and earth moving in order to help you accomplish your dream. But if it's not a God-centered plan, then even if you have heaven and earth at your disposal, like Hiranya Kashipu did, like Jayadratha did, it will be foiled. It will end in frustration, and the result will be very, very disappointing. It will create you more problem than whatever before. Right now, we're trying to solve the climate problem. There were huge tornadoes in the Midwest. 80 people died recently. They've never had tornadoes like that in the history of the Midwest. So that's just one of the many, many things that's happening with the climate. And all of the big scientists, technologists, and political leaders are trying to solve the climate problem. And of course, the big tactic they've resorted to is to go from carbon, from coal-powered energy to electric. And that's, I mean, it would make sense on many levels. Many people who tend to the mode of goodness, many people are environmentally friendly. They're buying Teslas now. They're buying electric cars. We have our own hybrid. One day gets like 60 miles to a gallon. And, as soon as you start to feel pretty good about how we're solving the climate problem, then you start hearing things like, well, it's in the Congo, for instance, is the #1 source of cobalt, which is an ingredient for battery-operated cars. Well, there are up to 40,000 young kids working under horrible conditions. There are no child labor laws in the Congo. It's a terrible violation of human rights. So maybe you feel a little less good about driving your hybrid or your plug-in or your electric car when you hear about the exploitation of all these kids in the Congo in order to get the ingredients that you need to tootle around in your electric car. And then other ingredients that are needed in an electric car battery come from, I think it's Bolivia and Argentina. But the mining process to get these rare ingredients it's replacing agriculture. It's taking away the ability of Argentinian farmers to grow their own food. It's taking away their land, and it's polluting the water. And so every problem, every solution to every problem has its own problems. It seems very feasible. Okay, let's go to electric. That will be zero carbon emissions. And that's true, but then there are other issues that come up. And those issues don't seem so great in the beginning, but then your supply chain breaks down. You have one country, which is the main source of cobalt. Anything that happens in that country is going to affect the entire world's production of electric cars. Do you think Russia, China, America are going to let that happen? So now you've got the Congo being another Middle East. Now just think about all the wars, all the money, all the agony, all the deaths that occurred during the reign of oil, of the oil fields in the Middle East. The same thing is about to repeat itself in the Congo, in Argentina. The point is, plain living, high thinking, folks. Plain living, high thinking, unless you get satisfaction in austerities and penance. Naiham deha bhajanito kashnikamade so shatam brahma sokam hianantam. Your first priority should be to please the Lord. And the Lord is not pleased by overindulgence, by exploitation. We, after all, did not create this material world. We cannot claim ownership, neither can we exploit it. All this exploitation, all this fervor, this feverish endeavor to extract more and more and more and more from the environment, from God's property, is unbecoming to those who want to achieve the ultimate goal of life. You have to flip it. Instead of aspiring for more and more and more material accoutrements, you have to reduce, 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 reduce. Get used to not having all the bells and whistles. Take refuge in the lotus feet of the Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and taking prasada. Redefine what is the purpose of life. Akshno phalam twadisha darshanam. The perfection of the eyes is not to see the beautiful form of woman or not to see images playing before you on the silver screen. The perfection of the eyes is to see the beautiful Yam Shine Vasunda Vachintarum, the threefold bending form of Krishna there on the altar. There is no more gorgeous, sight to see anywhere in the three worlds. And when you appear and take darshan before Krishna, Krishna also moves his loving glance over you, and you become surcharged with power, with energy, with insight, with focus, with vision to do things that you could never do over your own. So, Akshno Phalam Tadisha Darshanam. The perfection of the eyes is to see the beautiful form of the Krishna. Tanu Phalam Tadisha Gatrashanam. The perfection of association is to rub shoulders with devotees in the kirtans. We had a call a few days ago from Govinda Charan, a disciple of Indradumna Swami. They're thinking of having the Sadhu Sangh retreat on Memorial Day weekend in May, right here in Spanish Fort. Well, wouldn't that be something? The thought of it just gives me goosebumps. We're going to do whatever we can to make that happen. It may or may not happen, but anyway, this is a wonderful retreat which occurs every Memorial Day weekend. 3,000 devotees attend, and there's nothing but kirtan. So this is the best association. This is the best place you can be on each and every Memorial Day weekend. And then it says, the perfection of the tongue. Now look at how we talk, we complain, we gripe, we swear, we utter expletives. The tongue is meant to be chaste. Like the wife is not meant to look at or especially talk about other men. She's supposed to talk about her husband. Think about her husband. Talk about her husband, not other men. For her to ruminate on other men is unchaste. Similarly, our tongue is meant for Krishna. That's all. So the perfection of the tongue is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Honoring the Lord, being chaste to the Lord. Talking about none other than the Lord and his pure devotee. Sudura Bhatta Bhagavati. Such persons associate with other devotees, who see nothing but the deity form of the Lord as their highest priority, who take prasadam, who chant the holy names of the Lord. These persons are very rare. Why? Because in a world where everyone's crazy after materialism, they are crazy after Krishna. And following their footsteps, you can go back to home, back to Godhead. So going back now to old Jayadratha ji, he didn't get the sanction of the Lord. He's protected Duryodhana in order to keep Jayadratha alive past the end of the day's hostilities, past sunset, formed his 4 million soldier army, which was not only numerous, but it also contained the greatest champions of the day: Ashwatthama, Dronacharya, Bhisma, Duryodhana himself. It had many, many more lethal champions than the Pandava army. Duryodhana formed his army in the needle formation, 9 miles long, with Jayadratha at the back. And he told Jayadratha, don't worry, you've got the boon of your father, you've got Bhisma, you've got Dronacharya, you've got all the greatest warriors of the day, you've got the largest army to have ever been assembled on the face of the earth, protecting you, and they all have one purpose in mind: to keep you alive to the end of the day. But practically all the marshaled, assembled power of the world, of this earth, was focused on the preservation of Jayadratha's life for the next 8 hours. Duryodhana said, don't worry, everything's in your favor. But his calculation omitted one tiny little factor, and that was Krishna. You put Krishna on one side of the scale, you put all the worlds, including the demigods, on the other side of the scale, and Krishna will weigh them up. Krishna's weight will push them up. So Krishna is Arjuna's chariot driver. The sun came up, the hostilities began, and Krishna started driving Arjuna's chariot like no one has ever driven a chariot before in the history of the world. It was like the wind. The opposite soldiers couldn't even see him. He's zigging and zagging, going back and forth, and he started to make his way. They're either going to the left or the right, or they're going right over the top of their opposition. They're avoiding the biggest champions. Some are other Bhima, Dronacharya. They do not come face to face with them. And the interesting thing is that they get halfway through there. They get like 25 miles through. It's time for lunch. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They can't continue to fight without water, without food, for the whole span of the daylight hours. And so Krishna tells Arjuna, make a pavilion with your arrows. So Arjuna shoots his arrows in such a way that there's this protective shield, this pavilion, which the outside army throw themselves. Whatever weapons they throw against it, whatever horses or elephant, they cannot penetrate it. So right there, inside of this protective pavilion, in the middle of the whole army of Jayadratha, Arjuna and Krishna take a break. They get some water from underground. They take a little rest. They have a picnic lunch right in the middle of the battle. And then when they're ready to go again, they continue on their way. But it's getting pretty hairy, you might say, because sunset is just a few minutes away. And Arjuna and Krishna have gone like 48 miles, something that's never been done before in the history of the world. Absolutely stupendous. And they're at a distance. They can see Jayadratha at a distance, but the distance is so great that if Arjuna shoots his arrow, they'll easily, Jayadratha and his bodyguards will be easily able to see it coming, and they'll be able to deflect it with their shields. So some means has to be found to, number one, get a little closer, and number two, have Jayadratha's protectors let their guards down, leave him open. So Krishna is he's the creator of the sun, the moon, Yakshaktoresha, Savita Sakaram, Raja Samastishara, Shesha Maturi, Yashagnaya Brahmati, Kala Chakra. Says the sun, which is the most powerful of all the planets. It's Rajasamas, it's the king of all the planets. It's the eye of God. By his mystic powers, as Yogeshwara, Krishna caused a false sunset. 3 or 4 minutes before the sun actually dipped below the horizon, by Krishna's mystic power, he made it appear as if the sun was setting, with the desired result that all the bodyguards, all those who were crowded around Jayadratha and protected him, they dropped their guards, they dropped their shields, they started to do the little victory dance and high-five each other. And taking advantage of their misdirected attention, Krishna said, now, kill him. And Arjuna separated the head of Jayadratha from his body. Now, Arjuna's in mortal danger now because the head of Jayadratha is no longer attached to his body. The law of gravity is going to kick in, and the head's going to fall on the ground, and then Arjuna's head is going to crack into a million pieces. So what does Krishna do? He says to Arjuna, keep your arrows shooting, keep that head moving, don't let that head touch the ground. And Krishna gave Arjuna such GPS directions as to keep the head moving towards Jayadratha's father, Vridraksha, who was doing penances in the forest. He was sitting in meditation with his eyes closed. Krishna gave Arjuna such direction and such empowerment that by moving the head through the air, by shooting 1.5 arrows at it, he caused that head to fall into the lap of Vridraksha. He opened his eyes, and can you imagine a father seeing the severed head of his son in his lap? He was shocked to his very core. He got up as quickly as he could, causing the head to fall out of his lap, and then his head split into 1,000 pieces. In the meantime, back at the battlefield, all the Kauravas are saying, foul, foul, you cheated, according to ancient tradition. And the martial code, there should be the cessation of hostilities at sunset. After sunset, there would be no more confrontations, there would no more fighting. Soldiers would, in fact, visit each other in their camps and act as friends. So it appeared that Krishna and Arjuna had violated the tradition, the martial arts code. Everybody was censoring them, reviling them. When Krishna removed his illusion and the sun appeared, there was still a sliver of sun on the horizon. Everyone saw that after all, the sun had not set, but it just then set after Jayadratha had been killed. Well, the obvious lesson from all of this is that even with all the power, military and mystic power, and all the boons of the earth marshaled to protect, to inure Jayadratha against death, Krishna still found a way to dispatch him to protect his devotee, to honor the vow, as rashly as it might have been uttered, of his friend and devotee Arjuna, and bring him through triumphantly. So you can always count on Krishna. You can never ultimately count on the military might, mystic might, political might, economic might. These things have their limitations, especially if you don't have the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, we seek to protect ourselves from our family. Parents seek to protect their children through various types of remedies. Physicians seek to protect their patients through different kinds of medicines. We seek protection as we go on the freeways. We seek protection as we're on boats on the water. We seek protection when we're in a plane, in the air. And we're always endeavoring and trying to improve and fine-tune and tweak the technology which gives us protection from the elements, the air, the water, the land, the highways, and none of that. But none of these, as clever and as sophisticated as they are, none of them guarantee us protection. Talked yesterday about the Hyundai. Got a Hyundai for Bhai Bobby. It has so many built-in safety features. It's amazing. It's amazing. If you're on cruise control at 75 miles an hour and you come up and there's a car in front of you that's going 65, your car by radar, by inbuilt radar, will slow down to 65 miles an hour. You cannot possibly rear end a car in front of you if you're on cruise control. And it'll keep a nice, safe 5 cars back. And the biggest risk when you're driving is to change lanes, not seeing a car coming up on either side. Well, that's not going to happen in the Hyundai. There's a flashing icon in the side view mirror, and there's an alarm that comes up whenever there's a car abreast of you. And so you're never likely to change lanes being inattentive or unaware of a car nearby you. There are all kinds of really amazing, and I'm giving credit where credit's due. We should exercise our God-given intelligence to try to be as safe as we can, but we should be safe in the service of the Lord. There's no virtue in being safe, independent of, or in defiance of the Lord. The reason that you got up today, the reason that you didn't die in your sleep last night, is because you are created to serve the Lord. Now, you may not have served the Lord yesterday or the day before. You may not have served the Lord for years and years and years. The question may be raised, well, why has the Lord allowed you to get up on all those days when none of those days were dedicated for the purpose for which you were created? And that's because the Lord has given you a chance. He's given you grace. He's given you time to make up your mind. But there will come a point when the Lord's grace itself has its limits. And that will be the point that you do not get up that morning. And if you leave your body prematurely, not having fulfilled or stepped into the middle of what the Lord wants for your life, you're going to regret it. You're going to be shot through with regrets at the end of this life, and it's going to have a negative effect in what birth you're going to take next life. So by all means, safety measures, technology, all this stuff is great, but the most important remedial measure for accidents on the freeway, for plane crashes, for train crashes, for ships sinking, for drive-by shootings, there's only one guaranteed remedial measure. That is to be right in the middle of the service of the Lord, to get first and foremost the sanction of the Lord. That's what we learned from Prahlad Maharaj. Jayadratha was right in the middle of 4 million soldiers, all of whom had one order from their commander to protect him, keep him alive to sunset. Now, let's flip that. Prahlad Maharaj was a 5-year-old boy, born in a family of demons, a dynasty of demons. There wasn't anybody to protect him. He had nobody. He was in an ocean of miscreants, and yet none of them were able to lay a single finger on this 5-year-old boy, Prahlad Maharaj. In fact, while Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother, and his father was off on the Mandara mountain performing austerities to get his powers, the king of the demigods, Indra, approached Hiranya Kashipu's pregnant wife. She was pregnant with Prahlad. Indra was leading her away. He was kidnapping her, in essence, to take her somewhere secluded. They were going to watch over her in the wherever the demigods were staying. When she would take birth, they would kill that child. So Narada Muni intercepted Indra as he was leading Prahlad Maharaj's pregnant mother away. And Narada Muni said, I am Nishkipihi Shakshat Mahabhagavato Maha Payame Prabhasharamshan Anantu Chorobale. He said, this child within this woman's womb, I am Nishkipisha Shaksha. He has not performed any sins in this life, nor in any past lives within memory. In fact, Maha Bhagavato Maha, he's a devotee of the Lord, which makes him the greatest personality within the three worlds. And because of the protection of the Lord, because of his taken unflinching shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, Tayam na prapashe samshtam, you will not be able to kill him. Indra, with your thunderbolt and all your demigods, you'll not be able to lay a finger on this child within the womb of his mother. Why? Anantanu Choro Bali. He is a staunch follower of the most powerful Supreme Personality of God. You will not be able to kill him despite your best efforts. Fast forward, Prahlad's taken his birth. He's reached the age of 5-year-old. He's infuriated his father. His father is determined to kill him, and yet in spite of giving him poison, throwing him over a cliff, putting him with poison cobras, putting him in hot oil, the boy survived. Not only did he survive, he's still cheerful, he's still chanting Hare Krishna. So out of towering frustration, being completely enraged, Hiranya Kashipu says in the 47th verse of the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, Apramenanu bhavo yam akutashtid bayo mara. It's evident to me throughout all my attempts to kill you that you are totally unafraid of death. Not only are you unafraid of death, nonum etad barone, you have such powers that you appear to be immortal. You appear to be deathless. There appears to be no way to kill you. Mitu me babata maha. He says, this is puzzling to me. You're on one level, you're defenseless. You're a 5-year-old boy. You're surrounded by demons. You're harassed and tortured by the Asarabha, the head of all demons, who has conquered the universe, who has all these powers by which he thinks he's immortal, and nobody can lay a finger on you. This is amazing. And not only can we not lay a finger on you, but it is predicted that that same Prahlad, not only will Prahlad remain totally unharmed by all that Hiranyakashipu throws at him, but Prahlad will himself bring about the destruction of Hiranyakashipu, all of his followers. An example is given, Daitya Chananavari Ataram Yan Mulana Marapara Vishnu. This rascal like Prahlad has appeared in the dynasty of demons. The analogy is given, he's appeared like a thorn tree in a forest of sandalwood. Now the thorn tree is very hard wood. If you want to cut down a forest, you need an axe with a hard wood handle. If you have a soft wood handle for the axe is always breaking. You can't cut down the surrounding trees. So there's no harder wood than thorn tree. So Prahlad has appeared within the forest of sandalwood as a thorn tree to make the handle. The axe is Vishnu, the handle is Prahlad, and with that axe and that handle, they oversee to cut down, curb the power of Hiranyakashipu and all of his demoniac cohorts. So we have two contrasting stories for you to consider today. Jayadratha, who had all the protection of which one is possible, which one can possibly have in this world, and still Krishna wanted to kill him. Nobody could protect him. And on the other hand, Prahlad had no protection. He was a helpless boy inside of an ocean of demons. And yet at the same time, although all the demons wanted to kill him, not one could lay a finger on him. So if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can protect you. Krishna wants to protect you, no one can kill you. Therefore, the only remedial measure The only effective way to counteract the miseries and dangers of this material world is through pure devotional service of the Lord, following the footsteps of great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thanks very much for being with us, y'all. Good good day after Gita Jayanti meditations. At least I think so. What say you, Rob? Rob's going to go into court today. He's got people coming against him, but I predict that they won't be able to lay a finger on him.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. This was exactly what I needed to hear today, in so many different ways. Because oftentimes I feel the deep desire to protect my son from whoever that may be, and I have to realize that Krishna is really the only one that can protect him. He may use me as a tool to protect him, but it's ultimately Krishna's desire if he's protected or not protected. And that helps me kind of detach from the material attachment to my son. I mean, I definitely still love him more than anything, but it helps me know that whatever happens is Krishna's will. Whatever his will may be, it will happen no matter what anyone tries to do to thwart it. And it really helps me in the aspect of the people that are coming against me. Again, Krishna will protect me and he will protect my son if that is what needs to happen. So I'm able to find a lot of peace in your message today, and I'm so grateful for it. And he will also destroy the ones he wants to destroy. So things will be good today.
Really, really nice devotees. Really, really nice devotees. Malini Preeti, all the way from Malaysia. It's been a while, but we always keep in touch with you through your Facebook posts. You're always serving Prabhupada, distributing books and prasadam. Govinda Dev, be careful driving in snowy Salt Lake this morning. Mahatma, I'm going to give you some pictures of the Spanish Fork Buffet. I've seen Las Vegas down the road post pictures of their beautiful, it seems like upgraded buffet having opened after COVID. So I want to be in the game there. So wait for it, okay? Malini Preeti says it's 10:37, almost 11 o'clock at night, and she's listening to our podcast. And that's a sacrifice. We're humbled by your staying up past your bedtime to listen to what we have to say. Mahatma says, please do it. We love prasadam. Yes, we need to be more active on that Facebook page called Prasadarians, and we recommend any and all of you join. You'll get recipes. You'll get beautiful snaps of prasadam feasts and menus from all over the world. Bhakti Gary, Haribo. Bhakti Gary, we'd love to have you come and visit us. Maybe anytime, really, but we're having the Festival of Colors in March. We're having several festivals of colors. So come and see us someday. We don't want to just know you remotely. Gene, comprehensive and fullest dose obtainable. All right. I saw a lecture by a guy named Winston, who's supposed to be an authority on public speaking, and he says, you take a topic and you circle around, you circle around, you circle around, you circle around, you circle around. So hopefully when we take a topic, we circle around enough times and look at it from enough angles and employ verse and poetry and jokes and scriptural references and personal experiences to really make that point get embedded within your spirit. I know it has that effect for me, and I hope it does for you too. Anjali, postman delivering the future. I asked Jake if he'd send some sort of a resume, some sort of an artist's biography, so we could send that out and get him bookings. Jake's agreed. He's excited. Jake and Shama agreed to come for about a month in March and April. They'll perform at the Festival of Colors in Spanish Fork, and they'll be with us on April 16th in Las Vegas. So we've got a couple weekends free, April 2nd, April 9th. We're trying to get bookings for them at temples or clubs or anything. While they're in America, we want them to maximize their time. They have wonderful music, wonderful lyrics, expounding on Krishna consciousness. So let's take advantage of their being in America to get them as much transcendental engagement as possible. Yogesh and Pragna are in I don't know how to pronounce it, in Puerto Vallarta. And they sent some pictures of them walking on an idyllic beach yesterday. Soak up a little extra sunshine, a little extra vitamin D for me, because we're getting white here in Utah. We see the sun a lot, but it's weak this time of year. It's weak. Utah is not like Oregon, Washington, where it rains a lot. There's overcasting, clouds. Utah is always pretty much bright, sunny. It can be cold, there can be snow, but it's not overcast very much. So even in January, February, you kind of tend to be cheerful and upbeat, because you have clear, bright, sunny skies. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get white at the same time. So Jay, checking in from London. Bye, Bobby. Thank you, one and all. I really enjoyed this session, particularly in the wake of Krishna having spoken the Bhagavad Gita yesterday. Look forward to the weekend, and we'll share some more thoughts with you, as well as next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thank you, one and all. Keep chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.